Um, Hello, my name is Amanda Heglin. I'm in EEX 4242 at UCF, and I am going to be talking about a couple of books that I read for this class. The first one is What Great Teachers Do Differently, which is by Todd Whitaker, and I really, really like this book. I would highly recommend it to anyone that is going to teach. It talks about a lot of things, about 14 points that great teachers do differently that makes them great. And the things that really stuck out to me was how he really focuses on making sure that you're taking responsibility for what you have responsibility of, which is yourself. For example, if you have a problem in the classroom, like your students aren't performing as well as you would hope, don't blame the students. Don't think that, your students are stupid or whatever. Look at what you're doing and what you could do differently to help them learn better and therefore do better. He also, this one really surprised me. He also talked about making decisions in your classroom and thinking about what your best students will think about it. And I always I don't know, I never really thought of it from that perspective, but I really liked that idea, and it made sense. Like he talked about if you have a problem at your school where parents aren't coming on time to pick up their kids after a field trip, but there's only like a handful of parents that are doing that, you don't send home a letter saying, reminding all the parents to come on time when most of them already are coming on time. You send home a letter thanking them for their consideration in coming on time, which will make the majority, the parents that are coming on time, feel appreciated and feel good, but also it'll kind of make the parents that aren't doing what you want them to do feel uncomfortable, and it'll make them change. And it's that level of discomfort that kind of pushes someone towards being better, because if we're comfortable where we are, then we're not going to change. That's just human nature. So I thought that was a really interesting point. He talked about too, keeping negative things out of your classroom, because you're the lens that that your students see that class in. Like if you're always being negative, then they are always going to be negative also. And likewise, if you're talking with faculty about students in a negative way, then they're always going to see that student in a negative way. So we need to make sure that we are always as positive as possible, which is good because life is so much better when you're positive, I've found. Those were kind of the points that I wanted to touch on. Again, it was a really, really excellent book, and I love how he talks about all these things, but he makes it so that you feel like you can do it. He doesn't belittle you or say that, you're a bad teacher if you don't do all these things. He just says that, these are the things that he's found common in successful teachers, and that he makes it seem possible to reach that goal, to take it a little bit at a time and really be the best you can be. Maybe not right now, but to work to that point, which I think is important not only for us to be able to improve, but to instill that in our students, like that as long as you're making progress, then you're doing fine. You don't have to be perfect right away. You can be working towards a goal. The second book I read was called The Summer of the Swans by Betsy Byars, and it was really, really good. It's a fictional story. It follows the life of a family, really, but it focuses on a 14-year-old girl named Sarah and her younger brother. His name is Charlie, and he is mentally retarded, and it's really, really good. It's mostly from her perspective, but it does switch occasionally in parts from her perspective to Charlie's perspective, which is really interesting. Talks about how in the story, Charlie wanders off in the middle of the night because he thinks he sees a swan out in his yard, and it's really a cat, but he thinks it's a swan, so he goes to the lake to try and find the swan that was outside his window, and he ends up getting lost in the woods for like an entire day. And while he's lost, he falls asleep in this ravine, and when he wakes up, it talks about how he doesn't really remember how he got there, and how that happens to him a lot. How he will wake up somewhere, or like something horrible will happen. All these terrible things happen to him while he was lost, and he knows that he's lost, but he doesn't remember the details of how he got there. And I thought that that was really interesting to talk from his perspective. And there are other parts too that bring up different points. One of the, let's see. I thought also this book did a really good job of showing the good and the bad in the community. Like, for example, Charlie gets a watch for his birthday, and he loves this watch, but he can't tell time. And everybody kind of thought it was silly that someone would give him a watch for his birthday when he couldn't tell time. But since he got it, everyone that's close to him always asks him what time it is, and he's always so proud to show them his watch and show them what time it is. And I think, and when he's lost, the whole town stops what they're doing to go and find him. And when they do find him, Sarah's friend Joe sees that Charlie's watch is broken, and Charlie wants Sarah to fix it right when she finds him, but she can't because she doesn't have the equipment or whatever. And Joe takes off his watch and gives it to Charlie, and I think the book is just full of little things like that where it shows how people are so kind, and it also talks about instances where people are mean. People don't understand or make fun of Charlie, but for the most part, I think it's amazing how people generally try to accept and accommodate everyone, and really how much of a blessing that that people and students with disabilities are. Like in this story, it starts off for the first maybe 100 pages or so. Sarah's really focused on herself. She's a 14-year-old girl, obviously. She's focused on herself, on all the things that are wrong with her and everything in her life that she wished she could change. But when Charlie disappears, she like drops everything and goes to find him. And even after, her problems before seem so insignificant. And I think it's really amazing how certain instances in our life and certain people, in this case especially people with disabilities, can affect us for the better. Sorry about that. But yeah, this was a really, really excellent book. It's an interesting fiction, but it's also, it gives a lot of really good perspectives, and is a really good story, so I highly recommend that as well. So thank you for listening, and that's all. So until we meet again, have a good rest of the day, and yeah, have fun reading these books.